Welcome to the Unconventional Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Moses, certified financial planner, licensed realtor, and founder of Me Financial. If you're an accredited investor feeling overwhelmed by managing your portfolio and looking for alternative investment strategies that go beyond the traditional stock market, you're in the right place. Let's head into today's episode so you can start taking control of your financial future. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are going to be talking with a company called Reavanti, and they are senior move managers. And to talk about that, I have Zach here, who is the owner of Reavanti. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is his first podcast, and I thought this company is so unique that I really think that everybody needs to know about it, especially if you have like elderly parents or grandparents or something where you're trying to help them. Reavanti is the ideal company for families who are exhausted from juggling the downsizing and moving processes and want a smooth and easy transition for themselves or their loved ones. So thank you so much for being on, Zach, and we're going to get into this about what you guys do. Okay, so is that a good synopsis of what you guys do? You want to explain a little bit more about what senior move managers are?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having me today. Really, the whole goal of a senior move manager is just reducing as many of the stressors that someone might face, as they're looking to transition. So usually it's a very overwhelming process, and our whole goal is just to sort of be that support system throughout the entirety of the process. And I'm happy to sort of go into some of the, more fine details, but that's sort of the overarching goal is just, if there's a stressor that they have, I want them to put it on me so that they don't have to worry about it anymore.
And essentially when someone that is senior is either moving from their house into like a 55 and over community or memory care or something like that, right?
Right, yeah. The vast majority of our clients are usually in a pretty substantial downsize, couple 1,000 square foot house into, like you said, independent living, which is usually under 1,000 square foot.
Okay, so they're like moving into an apartment kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay, and they're overwhelmed with all the stuff that they have.
Right,
and they're not
they
sure what to
don't even
take.
know where to begin.
Okay, and they don't know like what to pack, what to give away, what to sell. Is that those kind of the categories?
Yep,
okay.
Exactly. And so typically our whole goal is we do it usually in 2 phases, and it's just to, try to make it into bite-sized chunks. So part 1 is making them comfortable into their new home. So we identify, all the most essential pieces of furniture, dishes, artwork, everything that is most important to them to make sure they take it with them into their new space. And then part 2 is, working through the items that they did not want to take with them. So whether we need to donate items, we have some wonderful charities. If we need to sell items for them, we have wonderful partners that we use of sort of varying degrees. So really high end all the way to sort of day-to-day items. And really just the whole goal is to find a home for all of these things and try not to throw away if we can help it.
Okay. All right. And does that take, I guess it depends on how much stuff they have, but what kind of time frames are we usually talking about with all of this?
So the really cool thing about our company too is we can be totally flexible with our clients, and usually that's really essential for them. Whether it's working around doctor's appointments or, they might have family in town or, sort of whatever their schedule might be. So we've worked with clients for over a year. They just wanted to see me once a week. But if they really wanted to get everything out of the house, we've done that in a couple days. So really just, we try to be as flexible as we can.
So it could take as long as like a year.
If they really just want to take their time, we've had, they wanted to sort of talk with us, see how they're doing, get some ideas, help have some conversations, and then, try it out for a month. Or they, we have someone they were living in Colorado, so they were gone for, 5 months and they came back. And so yeah, just whatever their timeline is, we try to match it.
Okay. And are you helping them decide what category their things go into or anything like that?
Yeah. So typically we have, 3 main piles to start with. So part 1 is, keep, like they definitely want to keep this. Part 2 is they're okay letting it go. And we have a maybe pile. And the maybe pile is, if it could fit or if it would look nice, that'd be awesome to take. But if it doesn't, that's okay. And then once we know they don't want to keep it, then we usually try to sell it first and then donate. And then if we need to dispose of anything at the end, we'll do that at the end.
Okay. And you have teams that do all of this stuff?
Yep. So all within our umbrella.
Wow. That's impressive. And so they don't have to worry about any of it. Like you're doing the heavy lifting and
Right.
all that, like taking it from their house.
Right. And the way that we're designed is the client is the one who's still the center of the process. They're the one who's making all the decisions. They're still the one in control. They usually talk with one of our project managers. This is that if they have any questions or they need to schedule anything or, anything on their mind, they talk to them and they form, a really wonderful relationship. And that project manager is the one who then coordinates everything on the back end. And this just really reduces a lot of the stress for the person in transition, because instead of having to juggle several conversations, they have one person that they're really comfortable with, and that just helps the process substantially.
And you guys are actually moving the items from their old house to their new house or condo or wherever they're living. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So they don't have to touch a thing. I mean, they kind of have to touch a thing, but do they put it in the different piles, or are they like marking it with
so typically,
pieces of paper or something?
Sometimes we've had clients who really want to be engaged, but sometimes, and probably more common than not, we usually have set up a chair relatively close to our staff who's working with them, and they just, how often do you use these plates versus these plates? Which pictures are most important to you? And so they are the ones who are making the decision, but they're typically, just sort of leading the process without doing any of the physical part.
Okay. And then who normally contacts you? Is it the person that's moving that contacts you? Is it the real estate agent that's selling the house, or is it like the kids that are helping the parents?
So I would say it's about 50-50. So about half the time the client will reach out to us, the other half, the family member. And then, so sometimes we'll have the realtor, if they don't have children or something along that line, or, some other individual. For the most part, I'd say it's about 50-50 family and then the adult children.
Okay, because the adult children are the ones that are feeling like they have to help them. And so if they're out of town, then it's really hard for them to come back and forth and manage all of it.
Yep.
Yeah. And you guys, I've had Zach on because I've heard so many great testimonials in the meetings that I go to from the people that have used Reavanti and just how easy it's been. And some of the kids that have been tasked with the downsizing and what a relief it has been, and how much you guys take care of everything, especially like placing it in the new home. And so let's go over that, because I think that's really cool, like how you guys lay it out and everything.
Thank you for that. So one of the important steps too is recreating the new space to feel as close as we can to the original space. So our staff, we take tons and tons of pictures, whether it's, the arrangement of the dishes, do things need to be positioned like to the right of the fridge, so that way when they move into the new spaces where they expect, or their bed, that'll be made up for them when they walk in, the pictures will be hung. And the whole goal of that is that when they walk into their new space, there's not that, now I got to unpack, now I got to get settled in. And that's one of the huge differences too between us and typical moving companies is, while sometimes moving companies, they might unpack things, they don't place it in a strategic way to make it functional and safe and comfortable for the client. So we step in and just try to make sure that space feels as similar as we can to original.
Okay. And that's what kind of sold me too, is that the bed was made. Because that's the biggest thing when you move. It's like if your bed isn't made and you have nowhere to sleep, it's a very bad feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
And, so we actually just took on a pretty substantial move pretty recently, and a really sweet lady, she actually knew it was going to be kind of a couple day for unpack, and she's like, the biggest thing for me is I need my bedroom and closet to be done, and I want my kitchen to be functional. So day one is we just made sure that closet, all the clothes were hung up, the bed was made, like all the toiletries were put away, the kitchen, like everything was kind of right where she needed it to be. So that way, even though there was still a little bit more in the process, she started already feeling comfortable in her new environment. So that's really important. And
so she was there, and then you guys came back like the second day and you unpacked more.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Because it's not like this all happens. Or are there times where you put their whole new living situation together and then they move into it?
So the vast majority of our clients, we move and unpack everything on the same day.
Okay.
So we usually do a lot of pre-packing before. We call them non-essential items. So this is, items that they don't need day to day leading up to the move. Like artwork is always a great example. And then on move day, we'll pack those final items, whether it's the final clothes, the last toiletries. We'll do the move and the whole unpack on the same day. So we'll unpack all the toiletries. We'll make make the bed, put away all the dishes. So that way at the end of move day, everything should be ready for them.
Okay. And then all the giveaway and the selling has already taken place.
So that is, we'll usually talk about the timeline for clients there. Typically we do that part after the move, just so that way they can focus on one thing at a time. And, you know, sometimes it just feels too overwhelming to think about everything they're not taking, that they don't even think about what they are taking. So we recreate that new space first, and then usually the next day or the next week, if they are ready for us, we'll go in and then start packing up all the items that they don't want and getting those items out of the house.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds really cool. I mean, it sounds like very stress-free move.
That's
I mean,
the
you
goal,
know,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you know how it is to move. It's like really overwhelming. This just sounds very magical. And so can we pivot a little bit, because I think this is really unique. Can we talk about like your memory care clients, the people that are moving into memory care and what you do for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So memory care is a very special group that we need to take extra precaution just recreating the spaces to feel as they originally did. So I know I mentioned earlier about pictures. We take even more pictures. So for example, today actually we just did a memory care move, and she had her pictures arranged on this bookshelf in a very particular way. The dishes were in a certain space. The bathroom, everything is just in a particular spot. She had a certain picture that was mounted on her wall that reminded her that this is her bedroom, not the other bedroom, because she had a 2-bedroom. And really just the whole goal is just taking the pictures and making it as identical as possible. So that way the transition feels like it almost didn't even happen for them, and they walk into their new space and almost feel like they didn't lose a step. We've even had individuals where he loved Star Trek. That was his thing. And as long as that was on, he was okay. But if it wasn't on, he was not okay. So that was like priority one of the organizing process, is making sure that on move day, we got the TV mounted and stationed to Star Trek. So that way at the end of the day, when he walked in, he found his chair and it felt like nothing happened.
That's wonderful. And it's just so loving. You know, and I think that's what seniors need. I think that there's so many people who are like, oh, whatever, you know, they're fine. They need to roll with it, you know, that kind of stuff. And I just think that your service is just so loving towards them. And I think that's wonderful, because I work with a lot of seniors, and I just think they deserve respect. They have a lot of knowledge and, you know, history and all of that. And so that they deserve this kind of treatment. I think this is wonderful. Yeah,
lots of fun stories. And usually that's their favorite part, is kind of reminiscing as we're going through the items. And sometimes they feel like they're, you know, losing a little bit of control. So I think it's just really important to us, again, to make sure that we give it back to them and know that they're the one in charge. They're the one who are making all the decisions, and we're just kind of their helpers.
Yeah, you said that earlier about making sure that they feel in charge. And I think that's really important, you know, because that's what starts to happen, is they feel like they're not in charge, especially with computers and, you know, needing help with all that kind of stuff. So I think it's wonderful that you guys think that way.
And I'm happy to set up the computer for them, though. No worries.
Yeah. I'm sure you're very helpful. It takes a certain personality to do all of this, to be just, patient maybe. And then you seem that way. So I think that's wonderful.
We have wonderful staff, and they're all very similar, and they do it because they love it. And most of them are actually retired, and they just love doing it. So it makes it really fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's just a really loving and caring thing that you can do for someone else. So I think it's wonderful. And then, okay, so can we talk a little bit about, like, how do you price all of this? Because there was somebody at the meeting the other day, and they were talking about how surprised at how reasonable it was, because she priced out like just moving companies and you guys, and it was just totally worth it and just so stress-free. So I know you can't, you know, give like a certain price, but is there like a range or something you can tell me?
So we always start with a free consultation, and these are helpful, for us to get an idea of, you know, the scope of work, but also to start forming that relationship. I know I alluded to it earlier, just kind of starting that bond with our client. So we always do those free consultations, and we always get an estimate at the end of that consultation. I would say the two biggest variables are quantity of items and the speed that the client wants to work. Some people are like, get rid of it. Other people want to, you know, go through plate by plate, page by page, which is totally okay. That just takes a little bit longer. And then, you know, a 1,000 square foot house versus a 10,000 square foot house, that range is substantial as well. So typically I would say for most of our transitions, it can be, if it's like really small, like the memory care one we did today, that was, and including the cost of the movers, is around like $800. And then, you know, the substantial one I was talking about, that was kind of over $20,000. So the range is really substantial.
Yeah, but with a mover, it would be that different, there would be like a big difference like that too, but you're adding this extra service to it, which I think would be totally worth it.
Right. And every single time clients always wish they reached out sooner and didn't delay the process, like every single time.
Really?
Yep.
You mean because they feel like rushed, like they should have started earlier with the whole process?
No, just because they've been, usually delaying it for years. So usually it's not that like they thought about it for a week and then they called, and they've been knowing they've sort of wanted to move, or they've been thinking it's ready time for move, but they look at all the items and there's no chance I can do this, and they've put it on for years and years. We had a client, and it was a similar situation. 5 years they've been delaying it just because it felt so insurmountable. When I met with them, like, oh, can we move next week? And like, yeah, let's
do
move
this
next week.
Yeah.
Just because they usually, this is such an unknown service still. It's kind of growing, which is awesome. But it's just such a helpful thing that most people don't realize. And then that usually is a big hurdle that can be removed.
Yeah. So that is like, are there other companies that do this out there in other cities? And
we're part of an awesome organization called NASM, which is the National Association of Senior Move Managers. And it's a nationwide company, and they have different companies similar to ours who do what we do.
Okay.
And it's really awesome to use a NASM company because we have a very strict code of ethics that we have to follow. This just prioritizes the senior throughout the whole process, making sure that, they're being taken care of and that everybody is, staying within reason and taking care of them. Again, sometimes that can get lost. So that's like my priority one, is making sure that they're okay. And the cool thing, too, is since it's a national organization, if someone's moving, say, from Arizona to California, or someone's moving, let's say, from like Wisconsin down to Arizona, I would connect with a different NASM company, and then they do something similar. So that way the process continues to be smooth regardless of where they are, where they're going.
Do you have a lot of cross-country moves or out-of-state moves?
We
really?
do.
Okay.
And so we actually originally started up in Wisconsin, which is interesting. We only had a couple of interstate moves. But since we moved to Arizona, we've had a lot more people going back to their family members, typically like the Midwest or California. It's just been interesting to see.
Yeah. No, that makes sense that they move out here to retire and then they're moving back with their kids or wherever they are. And that they would need some help doing that. It's a big project. So I think it's wonderful. I'd never even heard of someone doing like the type of company at all until I was with the brokerage and saw you guys present. So I think this is wonderful. I'm just so thankful we can get the word out about it. Am I missing anything? Actually, what I wanted to talk about was when I was talking that she was talking about moving people up to a bigger house too. So I know that most people are seniors, but there are just regular people that hire you to just move. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'd say the majority of our clients are definitely seniors who are in the downsizing process, but we've actually moved college students before. We've moved families. They were like in their 40s, but they just had so many other things going on, like work and family, that they just weren't able to, get everything packed and moved by their closing deadline. Or like this example, they actually were increasing the size of their house, but they still needed a little bit of help, making sure that all flowed well, packing everything, and doing the unpack. So we're happy to work with any clients. The majority, again, are seniors, but that's definitely not our only scope. We're happy to help anybody.
It's like you're a moving concierge or something like that.
That's perfect. Yeah.
That's the way I would put it anyway. Okay. Am I missing any part of overreaching themes or things that you guys do?
I think that's perfect. I think just the highlight too is just the two phases are really important, just to, again, reducing the stress. So getting them comfortable into their new space first, and then working through the items that they didn't want to keep for part two, and just kind of, taking care of anything on the back end. And that's really where we typically work with realtors as well, is getting the house staged. And sometimes there's, that specific weekend that needs to be on showing, and we can get things done, in a week. And we can do deep cleaning, handyman work, sale of items, just anything to get that house on the market.
Yeah, because they leave stuff behind in order to have it be staged.
Yep,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a win-win all the way around. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you taking the time to share your company with us. And I'm going to put your website in the show notes and all of your information in case you guys want to reach out to Reavanti for a move for you or your family. And your website is just reavanti.com, right? And they are local here in Phoenix, but as Zach said, there's a nationwide association that you could put in contact with, and we'll put all that in the show notes.
Yeah,
so
perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you again for your time, and thank you so much for listening, everybody. I hope this was a valuable use of your time, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Unconventional Investor Podcast. I hope you feel more confident in how you can grow your wealth using the strategies I shared in this episode. If you're ready to take the next step in diversifying your portfolio outside the stock market with alternative investments, head to mefinancial.net/contact us to book a 15-minute consult call with me. Let's discuss how we can work together to achieve your financial goals. Until then, I'll see you on the next episode.